Welcome to MCO455 Microcontroller Concepts. As you can see here, we have a theory section here, AB, or CD, or EF. You're going to be in one of these theory sections. If you're in the AB theory section, you'll either be in the A or the B lab. If you're in the CD theory section, you'll either be in the C or D lab. And if you're in the EF theory section, you'll either be in the E or the F lab. Now, each of these theory sections is flexible. What that means is, for instance, if you're in the AB theory section, your class will always be from 1140 to 125 on Fridays. But you have the option to either go to K3000 to do your theory, or you can do it online. Now, this is not just for the theory content, but this is also for the theory evaluations as well. However, if there's any technical problems with the theory evaluations online, and you don't go to K3000, then I can't reset your attempt or help you out. Anybody that shows up to the theory evaluations in K3000 in this case can have their attempts reset, ask questions, and for the quizzes, you can actually get feedback on what went wrong. Unlike your theory section, all of the lab sections are in person, which means when you're doing a lab evaluation of any sort, whether it be a lab quiz or a lab test, you physically have to be at this time in this room. If you're not physically in this room at this time, you will not be able to do either a lab quiz or a lab test, and your mark will be 0. I do take attendance to make sure you're physically here. Now, most of the labs that you're going to find, you're going to have to pre-do in an open lab and then come into the actual formal lab here and do the lab quiz or the lab test. What we're looking at here is the MCO455 AB theory section, and here's our course content. And under here, we're going to have a number of different headings. Now, all these headings that you see here will be exactly the same for all of the different theory sections, whether it's A, B, C, D, or E, F. Now, the first thing under course content is important dates and deadlines. Let's take a look in here, and you'll see start dates, end dates, this sort of thing. You'll also see when your tuition is due, and you'll also see things such as when the college is closed. Also here we have our course outline, which you can look at, but more importantly, this is probably the most important document in our course content here, which is your course addendum, because it goes through week by week what's going to be covered and when your lab and theory evaluations are going to take place. So as we look at our course addendum here, we can see in the second week we have a Lab1 quiz, which is worth 2% of our mark. Now, for the first week of our class here, both in the theory class and the lab class, we're going to be going through all the material that's on Lab 1, so we're going to be prepared for the Lab 1 quiz here. All lab quizzes are going to start 30 minutes into the actual lab class, and you'll have exactly 1 hour to complete all the multiple choice true-false questions on that particular lab quiz. Now, starting on week 3, we're going to do the Chapter 1 quiz, and the Chapter 1 quiz is going to cover all the material for week 1, week 2, week 3, and it's 2% of your mark, and these chapter quizzes start right at the beginning of each of your theory classes. As we go down through the first page of the addendum, we'll find here that the college is closed on February 17th, which is a Monday. Under important dates and deadlines, you'll find this information. But what that means is MCO455EF, which would normally have its term test 1 here, cannot have its term test 1 here because Monday the college is closed. It's going to have it 1 week earlier, as it mentions here, on the week of February 10th. So February 10th is when term test 1 is going to be for just the EF. Everybody else's evaluations will happen just as they are specified in here. So the A, B, and C, D will have their term test here, but the MCO455EF will have it 1 week earlier. Now you'll see as we go down through here, because of other strange things in our course, such as our course ends on a Thursday, not on a Friday, that the MCO455AB, which is a Friday class, term test 2 will be on April 4th, which is this week, due to the semester ending on April 17th. And that means instead of having their final exam on this week here, it's going to be 1 week earlier on this Friday because there is no Friday class in this last week of the course where the final exam is given. However, all the other theory classes and lab class and so on will not be affected. Only the AB, so C, D, and EF will have their final exam here and their term test 2 here. As we mentioned, Chapter 1 quiz is going to happen on week 3, and it's going to cover all of this material here. However, we have video lectures here for week 1, week 2, and week 3, so that you can go and review the material. We also have practice quizzes here for week 1, week 2, week 3 as well, which covers the kinds of questions you're going to see on the Chapter 1 quiz. For instance, if we look at MCO455 Week 1, we have a number of topics here. Let's take a look at the one for number conversions. What it's going to do is allow us to start an attempt here to ask us questions about how to do these various conversions and so forth, and give us lots of practice so we get an idea of whether we understand the material or not, and it gives us constant feedback, and we have unlimited attempts to do this, to practice the material that's going to be on the chapter quiz. Now, there's no actual credit for doing the practice quizzes, even though they're recorded, so I can take a look at them later to see who's been doing them. The only mark I have to justify at the end of the course is an F. And if you haven't been doing any of the practice quizzes and you do very poorly on the chapter quizzes, term tests, and so forth, then I know that's on you. Now, on page 3 of the addendum, it mentions in red here, you must pass both the lab and the theory to pass the course. Now, the theory is broken into chapter quizzes, and altogether there are a number of chapter quizzes which add up to 10% of your mark. There are 2 term tests that add up to 30, and the final exam is 20. So the theory is 60% of your mark, but even if you get 100% here, but you don't pass the lab portion of the course, then you fail the entire course. You have to pass both halves. The lab quizzes, there's 7 lab quizzes making up 10%. Lab tests, there are 2 lab tests making up 30 to give you a total of 100% for the course. All evaluations are done online, whether you're in the theory class or at home to do the theory portion, but also in the lab, they're also done online. But you have to physically be in the lab in order to do them, because they take attendance, and if your name's not on the attendance sheet, your mark will be set to 0. Multiple choice, true, false is the format for everything that you're going to do. All labs are supposed to be pre-done in an open lab starting at Lab 2, as we'll talk about. So if you do not pre-do it, you're not going to be successful, because you have to understand the material that's there starting at Lab 2. All lab quizzes and lab tests must be done in the class or your mark will be 0. If you try to do it online, you will be given a 0, as I mentioned. There's a short time in which you have to start the lab evaluations in the lab class, especially the lab quizzes, because you're already in the lab class and 30 minutes in you're going to do it. There's only about a 5-minute window from when it opens to when it closes, so you should be there on time. And the nice thing is when you come into the lab quiz, you have 30 minutes to go over any problems that you've had with that lab, with the instructor or your fellow students, and then you have the ability to then do the lab quiz itself. The theory is taught in flex mode, so you can either do the theory evaluations in class or online, and there's a 15 to 20 minute window in which to start the evaluation, but if you miss the window, you're not going to be able to start and your mark will be 0. If you choose to do it online and have any internet issues, I will not be able to reset your attempt, and if something goes wrong and you're not in the class, you're out of luck. If this happens, I will not restart your evaluation because I can't, and I'm not going to allow you to retake it at a later time because you chose not to physically be in the class. Students that are in the class will be able to have any attempts reset, and you also will be able to, for the quizzes at least, look at what the feedback is, because you get no other feedback other than your mark. And if you take it in class, you must have a laptop, tablet, even a phone is good enough, because it's only multiple choice and true, false. And either way, you're going to need your phone to authenticate your log into Blackboard to do any theory or lab evaluation. Now, there's a course textbook that you can look at that covers pretty much most of the information that you're going to need to know. Under Professor Contact Information, you can click here. There's my room number. You can click to send me email. And you can also click here, view of my timetable, in case you have to contact me or you want to set up some time to come and see me. I'm usually in fairly early in the morning, so these times here on Wednesday and Thursday are a good time to see me, right before any of these theory classes, or maybe just a little bit here around 1:30. Those are times you can set up appointments to come and see me if you're having trouble with the course. Now, as we mentioned before, there's video lectures, practice quizzes. Here's where your chapter quizzes are. Term tests are going to be here. Final exam here. We also have something called Zoom Stuff, and Zoom Stuff is going to be when I record video lectures, which I typically do. Whether you're in the class or not, I record the video lectures, and then I'll post them under Zoom Stuff here. Here we are at MCO455 AA Lab section under Content. And whether it's A, B, C, D, E, or F lab sections, it's set up exactly the same way. We have important dates and deadlines, course outline, course addendum, professor contact information, course textbook, and the only real difference here is our labs, lab quizzes, and lab tests. Now what we want to do is take a look at labs, and specifically Lab 1, and when we bring it up we've got this, and this is what we're going to be working on in the first week of theory and lab. And you can see here that there's some things in sort of a pink color. These are links to YouTube videos to show you how to do binary to octal conversions and binary to hex conversions, and then you're going to have to take a look at this binary program that's here that's in bold, which is correct, and figure out, is the octal program here equivalent to that, or are there mistakes made in the conversions from binary to octal? And are there conversion mistakes between binary and hex, and circle anything that's wrong. And basically, by doing this in the first week of classes, theory and lab, you're going to then be able to take the sheet that you've got and sit down and answer multiple choice true-false questions on Lab Quiz 1 about what is filled in on your sheet. Now, as I said, you have the ability to converse with your other students in the first 30 minutes and compare your sheets of information that you worked on in Lab 1 to see if they agree. And if they don't agree or they do agree, then you can come up with the best possible solution of things that are here and things that are circled. And it's going to ask you in the quiz, it's going to say, was this circled and this circled? If it wasn't, then no, that's not it. Or it could be maybe this is circled and this is circled and this is circled. So you're going to have to compare what you've circled with what's on the quiz and see whether your pattern lines up or it's none of the above. And it's really that simple to do the Lab 1 quiz, but you have to check everything on Lab 1 to make sure it's perfect before you come in to do the Lab 1 quiz.